how to be profitable in 2024.
Marketing has really changed.
That there is a path to a career within our practices.
Change your website geared more towards them.
The multi-generational communication conflicts.
People aren't coming to you because you're an in-network provider. They're coming to you because they want a beautiful smile.
This is truly what's on the mind of orthodontists.
You know, having that high level of service.
This day and age, it's all about differentiating yourself.
So happy to be here.
All right, Dr. Lee, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're so glad to have you as a part of this project. And we really just want to jump right in because everybody who's listening, really busy, and we just want to get them the information they want to know. We just kind of want to know, what do you think, in your opinion, is on the mind of every orthodontist that they don't have a solution for?
I think something that might be of concern is just the number of offices and competition in the orthodontic industry, especially in Southern California.
So a little bit more about that in terms of just kind of what the market's like, how that impacts you.
Yeah, I just feel like in Southern California, regardless if you're in, Orange County or LA proper, it does seem quite saturated. Obviously less than general practices, but a lot of new grads and new orthodontists who are around my age are very self-motivated and are ready to build their dream practice. And just like myself, but I do feel like the number of offices popping up is incredible these days. And just finding your space has been tough and really getting settled because your neighbors are also orthodontists that maybe have been in that office for over 20 years because orthodontics is the best specialty in dentistry. And so you end up staying forever and ever. Differentiate yourself enough to the competitors, and even within the new people and new orthodontists that are building their practices right next door. It is something that is on the back of my mind as new startup office.
I think that's really great. And I think no matter what market, when I talk to doctors in other markets as well, that, the idea of, I don't want to use the word saturation, but, lots of offices popping up is definitely a concern. So I kind of want to pick out a couple things that I heard you say about that. And I think this is going to kind of lead into the next question a little bit. You talked about finding your space in the market. You talked about kind of figuring out a way to differentiate. So kind of with that in mind, in terms of, you've kind of set the stage as this, kind of problem that's out there, at least in your area, is kind of a saturated or becoming or feeling like saturated market. So how can practices lean into these obstacles and actually find solutions in the middle of kind of these obstacles that are out there that you mentioned?
It's so interesting that you picked those parts out because this day and age, it's all about differentiating yourself, right? Like the people on social media, how am I going to stand out? Because now everyone wants to be an influencer. What kind of niche are you going to have in your area? And I think, obviously this is a WildSmiles podcast, but WildSmiles has been a great way for me to differentiate my office. I am actually the first practitioner to offer WildSmiles in my city in Orange County. And so that has been a great selling point to my patients and just a huge way to spark interest to possibly click my practice out of all the ones that are in the area. But yeah, really doing your best to stand out in every way possible, because right now it's all about individualism and everyone's attention span is like 0.2 seconds long. So any way that you can engage a patient in any form will really do your business good.
So what are some other things that you've done? I mean, WildSmiles is a great example, and of course I agree. But what are some other things?
And you didn't force me to say that, so.
And maybe it's ways that you've used WildSmiles. You could share that too. But just in general, I know you're doing things on social media that are a little different than other people. And so what are some of the different things that you're using in your practice to really find your space?
I actually think that building your team to the way that you envision your practice and maybe like your overarching, not motto per se, but how you want to present yourself as a practitioner to your patient, and making sure your team kind of reflects your same personality and demeanor has been really important in terms of social media for me, because I feel like my team is on the same page when it comes to portraying my office and what type of practitioner I am. I try to be as genuine as possible. So those silly videos that you find on our Friendly Ortho Instagram is just maybe a little bit of an exaggerated version of me, but definitely still me, and also my team. So it's been really great to find that. I think really understanding the personalities you bring into the office has been huge for us, and kind of, making sure that genuineness that make sure that you're yourself and that anyone who walks in is not surprised by how actually kind of stern or cold the office is relative to what they might have seen on social media.
I love that, because so many practices, I think, try to do that, but it's hard you hear all the time doctors saying that it's hard to hire team members. So can you talk a little bit about how in the environment of it's hard to hire team members and maybe even retain team members, how have you not only been able to do that, but then actually find people that live out kind of your ethos for the practice, or your attitude?
Oh man, I wish I had a magic wand for that one. It was really hard. It's definitely not the first wave of people that came in, or I was able to spot them out within their application. I definitely feel like you need to do an extensive working interview, or even like a probational period, where you find that good fit and make sure that their attitudes is reflective of your like office philosophy, and you're able to mesh well. Obviously everyone says this, it's like dating. It's really hard, but for me, it's been a lot more intuition than papers and resumes and anything like that. But I think it's also how they react to maybe when you ask them to make a video, and their reaction within the video, or their excitement level for social media, or their excitement level for any questions that I have about implementing new ideas, is really reflective of how they're going to grow with you in the future. I always tell my team, take initiative and use this practice like your own, because if we're successful, you will be successful. We'll be successful together. So I am welcome to new ideas, implementing what staff may think is a better method. I try to be humble in that sense. And most of the time, I would say 99.9% of the time, it's way better than what I was thinking I should do. And so that has really helped the office be more successful.
I love it. So really just empowering them to look at things differently.
Exactly. Empowering them to be almost like part owners. They are the masters of their position. And so whatever ideas they have to make their work better, more successful, easier, more efficient, it usually works. It has been a great way to grow together.
So I love that. And I know that there might be some people that listen that are like, yeah, how do you get employees to feel like owners when they're not owners? And I know you said you don't have a magic wand, but it sounds maybe like you do a little bit. Are there things that you do for your team other than just, empower them to have ideas and share them? Are there specific things that you do that are helpful in helping them to kind of take ownership?
I could see how that's really difficult, because, you could be like, oh yeah, but it's not my practice. And I don't maybe get to reap the same benefits as the doctor or owner. Trust me, you want to take my bills, go run with them. But no, what I think has worked is asking them what they think of my ideas, or asking them how they feel like it could be done better or make it easier for them. I feel like when I do that, they are able to be more open with their critical thinking, or keep it open so that even if they're wrong, or maybe we don't implement their idea right away, it's never shot down. We'll try it. Let's try it. Great idea. Let's try it. And we'll adjust. It's been really great.
I love that, because I think if I'm hearing, one thing that you're saying is that the people that you hire, you want them to be part of a team, and you're looking for people who want to be part of a team. And I think a lot of people kind of wrongly assume that money is the only motivating factor, when really just being a part of an environment where your opinion is heard and valued, especially in a fast-paced, fast-growing young practice, that can be just as valuable as anything else. So I think that's great.
Yeah. I think that's so true. You said it so well. You want them to feel as valued as possible. And we do have like internal monetary bonuses for obviously, making numbers and production and all that. But more than that, I feel like when their idea is executed and it's successful, they feel really a lot of pride and joy from watching the practice grow too. I do also feel like I'm very careful with wording. I never like to, or I try my best not to call my team staff. They are not my staff. They are members of my friendly team, and we all are responsible for the office. That sort of attitude, I hope it helps.
I love that. Well, actually, I think this would be a great time. So we've talked a little bit about the kind of the mindset and the obstacles and ways that you've kind of positioned your practice, at least internally, to kind of deal with some of those problems. But I would love for you to introduce yourself. We haven't really introduced you to anybody, but if you wouldn't mind sharing your name, what your practice name is, tell us the little story about what your practice is about and kind of where you are in your practice journey.
Well, I am Dr. Janice. I am a double Trojan. I went to USC for both dental school and ortho. My practice is in Anaheim, California, in Orange County. It is my first startup office, and I am a mother of 3 munchkins under five and under. It has been challenging to say the least. My third baby was born at the same time that my office was finished with construction. And so there were a lot of FaceTime calls while I was postpartum, and I had 2 babies at the same time. So maybe moms with twins would understand how I feel. It is now flourishing, and I am so grateful. We are about a year in. We just completed our 1-year anniversary this month.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That's no small accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Awesome. Well, we want to make sure that these are, information that people can get and use. And so I want to keep going and get your thoughts on where you think practices and really the overall industry might be vulnerable. Some examples that people throw out are things like, the industry, the economy, and, birth rates and stuff like that. I don't know that those are any of the ones that you might select, but where would you say that your practice and maybe also more broadly the overall industry is left feeling a little vulnerable kind of in the current market conditions?
Yeah, I think personally, I do feel that pressure of possibly an economic downturn happening at any moment just from our past history. So that does concern me a lot. And otherwise, I feel like that has been mostly in the back of my mind that at any moment we'll go through another dip and I'll have to close my doors and just pause, because nobody's going to think that the first thing on their list is orthodontics. And so
I think there's a lot of validity to concerns like that. And maybe there's not. Maybe you've been this a year. You're just trying to keep your doors open.
Head above water. No.
Yeah, right. I mean, sometimes that's vulnerable. Just trying to keep my head above water. Feel that way sometimes?
Yeah, I do. I mean, as a startup office, I feel like every month I come in and, just as a practice owner, I've been told this by practice owners before I open, that every month it's something. You come in and something is broken, something needs repair, and the team aspect is always presenting new challenges. And I've heard from practice owners before that even if the economy goes south, orthodontics is usually pretty elastic in terms of bouncing back or not being as affected. So maybe that is a little bit of me being not as realistic, but it is still something that I think about because everyone talks about it.
Yeah, I definitely, I think I've been in this industry for 18 years, and I think the things that people talk and worry about, and then the things that actually happen are not always the same.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting. Nobody's the future teller. So
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe this is a little bit better question, a little more positive question. Same idea in terms of practices and industry. Maybe a small kind of micro view and then a more macro view. But where do you think that, given whatever these challenges are and the vulnerabilities in the future that we can't control, where do you think that practices in the industry might be positioned for success?
I always say that social media has helped our industry tremendously, because now people of all ages, doesn't matter if you're, 6 years old now, because somehow you have access to content, or in your 90s. I have a patient in their late 70s, actually. We are sort of caught in this, I guess, era where everyone is a lot more focused on presentation and a way more knowledgeable. So knowledge is so accessible, a little bit too accessible, in the sense where patients now understand if there's something wrong with their occlusion, it affects their smile, their teeth, the way that they present themselves. And so I think that has been a huge benefit to the industry in the most recent decade, I guess. And it doesn't seem like it's getting the visibility is not getting any smaller. So I just feel like that has really been a huge boost in the orthodontic industry, if that's sort of makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Well, so on that, how are you using that? So you mentioned earlier you're big on social media. I mean, you do a lot of social media stuff.
Tempting.
and you're really growing your presence on social media. You're growing the content that you're doing. So how are you using this technology piece and the access that just society has to content? How are you using that to your advantage in your practice?
Yeah, so I think it's been really important to throw out a mix of, knowledge and dispelling myths about orthodontic, and also giving the patient the opportunity to learn about orthodontics at the same time in a hopefully funny way that sparks joy. And relating the two, I think has been really helpful in social media. So that mixed bag has been really helpful for the patients to come in knowing that they're going to find a very friendly office that is huge on humor, but is hopefully shows that we are knowledgeable in what we do and can help them manage their expectations and correct their concerns in a safe way.
I love it. So really using it to create more engagement.
Yeah. Be engaged, have the patient learn, but just feel, I guess, comfortable to be able to ask those hard questions. And yeah.
Great. I think that's awesome. So only like 2 more questions for you. So one is going to be I would like to know a little bit about your summary of kind of what we've talked about in terms of boiling it down into some next steps for someone who might be listening. And then the other one is going to be kind of a fun surprise that we're asking everybody at the end, and no one knows the question. So you'll be just as surprised as anybody else. So the first one is, do you have 1 to 3? You don't have to say 3. You could just say 1 if you want, but like a concrete, simple next step for a practice who, heard what you had to say today about social media or about finding your space in the market. Like, what's just one thing that an orthodontic practice, whether they're a startup or an existing practice, could do? An actual thing that, like, they're listening to this on a Friday, they could do this thing next Monday.
I would say figure out what type of philosophy your office has in terms of like if it was you personified, your office personified, find that voice and try to create it in social media form. Do that while also trying to differentiate yourself with other ones out there. So find your voice, try to personify your office, and I guess critically think how you can differentiate your office from others. And I would say get your team involved, see who is willing to use their positive energy, maybe they wanted to be an actress or actor in the past. Use it to your advantage and the office's advantage, and they will have fun too. Like, everyone will love it.
I think that's great. All right. So the last question, I want you to have fun with this, because especially for your practice.
Like my head is spinning now. I think I'm in like a fog. Okay.
Well, you're doing great and you've done great. So the last question, this is a fun one. All right. So especially for you're like near like LA, you're right across from Disney, villains and heroes of movies and stories. I think that orthodontic practices are entering themselves into the story of their patients' lives, right? So who is your favorite, or what is your favorite villain out there? And then who's the favorite hero, or what's the favorite hero of a movie or a story for you?
I think, well, this is in my mind because I just watched the ending. We rewatched the ending and I watched the ending so many times, but Thanos is probably my top villain because he didn't care. He had one philosophy, one thought in his mind, and he's like, I don't care about anything. I don't care if I die as long as it happens. Doesn't matter. I will destroy galaxies and it's gonna happen. And yeah, in one scene, he's like, didn't care. He's like, yeah, kill me. Doesn't matter. He's so ruthless. He's like crazy villain.
I love it.
My top hero, I guess in the same sense, I would say it's Iron Man because he's like Mr. Cool Guy. He has all the little gadgets. He wants to portray this like cool billionaire genius person, but he has such a softy little heart and, you know, cried when Spider-Man died and then he beat Thanos. So
There you go. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the content that you shared with us today, the words of wisdom. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, 3 kids, new practice, busy life. Thank you for taking time out of that to share some wisdom with us and those that are listening to this podcast.
I'm here for it. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that the listeners gained something. And if they need clarification from my head spinning, I'm happy to do it on the side.
Yeah. Well, actually, so I do want you to share, because we're going to put this out there. If someone wanted to follow you, where would they go to follow you on social?
Oh, yeah. Social handle is at Your Friendly Ortho, and friendly is spelled FRIENDLEE because I am Dr. Lee. And we have our website, www.friendlyortho.com.
Great.
That's where you'll find me.
Well,
and then sorry. And
No.
then my personal one is Dr. Jan Ortho.
Okay. Gotcha. For your own personal persona, the real life stuff.
Which is the same.
Same. Oh, okay.
This is
Gotcha.
easy.
Well, again, thank you for spending the time, and we can't wait to hear how people benefit from this. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.